Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs Podcast, and once again, the good news, guys, is the Cubs didn't hurt us for another day. Credit to them. Credit to us for not being hurt as well.
I don't know, man. I got an email straight from Tom Ricketts today. I usually don't feel very good when that hits the inbox, but, you know.
One might call that a tease, so we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Cody _CHGO, Ryan _A _Herrera, and Corey _Cubs. Corey is in studio. He decided to come in because Luke is once again sick and, you know, not here. So I guess you're filling in for me since I'm filling in for Luke.
Yeah. I told you guys I'm going to dial up some meatball takes today.
Yeah.
Corey Del Friedman.
So I'm going to say some reckless stuff today.
Say something that's going to get the
I'm
chat.
going to rile up the Cardinals fans, try to get another fan base to
Absolutely.
send me
Completely
death
irrational.
threats. Yeah.
We're also joined by good friend of the show for the first time, but I see him in the chat all the time. He's a great photographer out in Arizona, Rich Biesterfeld. I met him in Arizona when I went out there for vacation and watched the Cubs break my heart twice. But my favorite part of the trip in Arizona was when I met Rich. Welcome, man.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on today.
Before we really dive anything, you got to show everyone what you're wearing because that's the best part of the show. There it is. There it is.
CHGO support.
We're merched up today.
We are.
The four wide.
I'm like our good friend Greg Braggs. Blackhawks are 1-0 since I became a fan. I'm a big fan of Connor
Big
Bedard.
hockey guy
He
over
won me
there.
$35 last night. Lifelong fan. My favorite hockey player of all time.
Well, if you want Rich's shirt or any of our three shirts, CHGO Lockers got them all.
Exactly. You can
So
get
make
this
sure you
one
go
too.
to CHGO Locker and check them out.
So again, thanks, Rich, for joining us, man. I guess what I want to start with you is, we've had guests all week talking about the season and stuff like that. So for you, how did you feel about the Cubs season overall?
I was happy with the progress. I think, like everybody, kind of disappointed in the ending. Just kind of seemed to fall off the cliff there at the end. But it's kind of the love-hate relationship. You hate the way it ended, but I mean, I think if you had told me in the spring that the season would have ended where, they were above 500 and they were fighting until the last weekend, I probably would have said, wow, that's great. So perspective, it feels it doesn't hurt as much now as it did right at the end. Like when I met you out in Arizona, that was a tough series.
And Rich, obviously, I always joke about this with like Greg and Brian Smith when we talk to them. Like, I think your primary focus is on some of the lower levels. But I always joke with them. It's like, but you guys are Cubs fans too. We can talk about the, the big league team. But kind of following that, like, obviously, if you don't follow Rich, you should be. He takes wonderful photographs of so many of these players. But from a lower level side, minor league side, I know you're out there in Arizona right now, getting ready to go to the fall league games. Kind of that same question, but for the lower levels, how did you feel about the minor league system development, especially as we head to an off season where that development and growth and the building of the pipeline becomes that much more important to whatever the Cubs are going to do next?
Yeah. Personally, I feel great about what the minor leagues did this year. I mean, Tennessee won the AA championship. You love seeing that. I think it's the thing to remember with the minor leagues, and I think it's hard if you don't follow it to remember, it's like you want to win. Obviously, you always want to win. But development sometimes has to take the priority. I was watching the show yesterday when you had Max Bain on. And, Max was a great example. When Max was out doing his stint on the development list, I watched him pitch a couple times in the complex league. And while he was pitching, there were times you'd look at him and it's like, well, what's he doing? And then I'd talk to him afterwards and find out, well, maybe he was just working on his breaking stuff. He could have put somebody away with his fastball easily, but that wasn't his focus that day. That wasn't what he was working on. So, I think that's always important to keep in mind, is that development has to take the priority. And, even though it may not get you the win that day, in the long run, it's going to be better. Jordan Wicks, I think, is another great example of that, where early in the season, he was working on certain pitches, and even last year. So he wasn't throwing his best stuff because, those were already good, but he wanted to bring up the level of some of his other pitches. And then once those were in line, he was able to, fire away with his full arsenal, and boom, he was moving quick.
Rich, I'm curious, like outside of just this season specifically, I'm sure there's people in the chat that maybe are not aware of what you do or want to get to know more about you. Just how did this start? Like anyone that follows you on Twitter, we see great stuff. You've taken pictures out in Arizona, or sometimes you're on the road and are able to go to some of the other lower level games. Just how did that all come about? How did you kind of get into photographing the prospects and also
Sure.
like obviously spring training and stuff too?
Sure. No, great question, Ryan. For me, lifelong Cubs fan. I'm originally from Illinois, around the Kankakee area. So, like many other people, got pulled in, as a young child on WGN with all the games on there. But then lived in Illinois till in 2016, I transferred with my job out to Arizona, and then was fortunate to be able to retire in 2018. And so all during that time, I was doing photography as a hobby, but kind of got into it more seriously when I left my full-time job. And then I think it was in 2020, the COVID year. Everybody was going a little stir crazy by that fall. And so I heard they were doing Instructs. And so I went out to shoot some stuff at Instructs, and ended up striking up a conversation with Chris Clark, who was at AAA Iowa this year. And, Chris starts asking, well, what do you do with the pictures? And I'm like, I share them, I post them out. And he's like, well, send me pictures. Okay. So I send Chris pictures. I think within about 2 hours, I had notes from, I don't know, probably at least 20 to 30 other players, or, or friend requests or something like that. Hey, can you send me pictures? Can you send me pictures? And it kind of took off from there. So, and after that, just continued to develop my skills, get better, upgrade equipment, and to the point where I've had, I think I've got four cards now that have been done by Topps and Bowman, and one by Onyx. So always kind of cool to see your picture on a baseball card. That was one of those childhood dreams of being able to say, hey, that's my photo on that card. So that's what kind of brought me here.
You might have posted it on Twitter too, but I think I saw it originally on Facebook that they took a picture of yours of Matt Mervis and put it on a card this year. So
Yep. I've got like one of Jordan Wicks. That was the Onyx one, and they had a couple last year of Christian Hernandez, and then the Matt Mervis one this year from the Fall League.
It's kind of like a similar question to what I asked Max yesterday. He's been in the Cubs organization for almost 3 years now. Obviously, you've been in Arizona since 2016, but taken photography a lot more seriously. So you've seen a lot of guys who no one, knew of, 3-4 years ago. Justin Steele might be a great example. Right. What's it been for you, I guess in a way, meeting those guys, taking their picture, promoting them online? Because I'm sure a lot of them see it, especially when, no one knew who Justin Steele was before last year. Right?
Right.
What's it like creating that relationship with those guys when they're in the complex league and stuff, and then watching them get all the way to Wrigley Field?
That's one of my favorite parts. Getting to meet the players, especially when they're young and coming into the league, getting to meet them. I've gotten to meet a lot of their families, their parents. It gives you that extra vested interest. And so, when I'm watching, whether it's Justin Steele or, he's hurt this year, Ethan Roberts, but, you've got that personal rooting interest, that's not just a guy on the field. That's a real live actual person, out there. It's funny, Justin Steele, I've got a couple pictures from, I think it's his rookie year when he still had a mullet. So that's always a fun look. But yeah, I know, like, even watching Jordan Wicks, I've gotten to meet Jordan's dad, not in person, but online, and kind of watching along that journey and seeing the excitement for him, for his whole family, making his big league debut and having such a successful rookie season. It's like I say, it's not family, but it kind of feels like extended family having that success.
Is it difficult, like, especially when there's the guys like really lower level, just came into the system kind of thing, just to like even know who they are? Like when you're taking pictures, you're like, I'm not exactly sure who that is. Did you come across that?
Oh yeah. Give you a great example. Your guest from yesterday, Max Bain. So I'm just wandering around the complex in early 2020, and just see this guy on the backfields, warming up in the pitcher stretching area. Have no idea who he is, but I see his name on the back of the jersey says Bane. It's like, well, that's kind of cool, kind of like Batman movies. So I just took a picture. Didn't know the guy at all. Then later in the year, kind of find him on social media, and we start talking. And so I send him a couple of the pictures, and he was super excited to have it because if you remember Max's story, Max really changed the way he conditioned and everything. So he dropped a lot of weight and got in so much better shape. And so he was just excited to have some of those kind of before pictures. And he's even produced, or done a couple tweets of, the then and now kind of thing. So, yeah, it's, I've also built relationships with some of the coaches. So occasionally I'll have to send a note to one of my friends. It's like, hey, can you tell me who this person is? Because I don't recognize them yet. But then I try and commit the names and faces to memory.
I see my guy Mike Dubs in the chat says, Rich, the absolute best. If you go to spring training, it's a must to say hi to Rich. Such a great dude. I have to say, when we did meet in Arizona at the Diamondbacks Cubs game, it did feel like a long time coming, because I had been following you on Twitter for a handful of years now, and there just isn't another person like you out there in Arizona doing this, at least as far as the photography. So I guess my next question is, like, the Cubs have to know who you are. Like, how with the relationship you have with them, when you just started doing it, like, were they like, who are you? Get out of here, or did they just like, yeah, do what you do, man?
So I think it's kind of been a gradual process. So I always try and be very respectful of the players, of the security, the organization, and I'm if there's a question of should I do this or not, I'm not going to do it, because I don't want to damage those relationships. And that's paid off big time for me, because I've gotten to know a lot of the people, and so they know me well enough to know that I'm not going to be trying to break the rules, or I'm not going to be trying to like sneak onto a field where I shouldn't be. Even if that gets you the one picture or the one thing that you want at that time, that can cost you a lot more in the long run. So I think, to me, that's the thing, just being respectful that those guys have a job. And same thing with the players. I've had guys like, just chit-chatting or something, all of a sudden like, oh, I'm sorry, I got to go do this. And it's like, dude, I get it. You're at work. You need to go do your thing. I don't want to infringe on that. My goal is to be kind of the fly on the wall, that they don't even notice me, because a lot of times that's when I get the best pictures, when they're not posing, when they don't even know it, when you can kind of get that, whether it's a look or just a candid moment between a couple of teammates. A lot of times it's just fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's, it's obviously a cool time, because, you're hoping that a lot of these guys that you're seeing at their earliest stages in their career are ultimately, will be able to look back on when they've won a World Series or two and look at their photo and, back in Mesa and stuff. But we had a super chat from Chris, I think a little bit ago, that plays into a question I did want to ask. Chris said, appreciate the super chat, Chris. Try to check in as much as possible. Love the show. Miss you, Stuckey. We have a ton of top outfield prospects. Who has more value, and which would you like to keep between Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara? And to follow up on that question, like, I know you're out in the Arizona Fall League right now. We're seeing the videos of Kevin Alcantara. He's flipping his bat. His swing looks beautiful. For you, as we enter an offseason where how the Cubs decide to piece together the next great Cubs team is up in the air, right? Like, is it hard for you when you're like watching Kevin Alcantara in person and you're seeing the potential, or someone like James Triantos, and you're right there witnessing it. Is it hard to enter an off season like this? Do you feel yourself kind of like holding on to some of these guys when you read potential trades? Are you comfortable with the Cubs doing whatever they can to get better at the MLB level? How do you kind of like reconcile all of those things?
No, great question. I think what I've learned through following this is that you want the best for the Cubs. Obviously, like I said, I've been a Cub fan my whole life. But as you get to know players, you want the best for them too. So, for instance, the trade deadline time now is can be kind of stressful because you're just like, okay, I hope we add, and I hope we at the major league level, I hope we add that talent that can help push us over the edge. But I hate seeing guys that have gotten to know, being traded to another team. So, when the Cubs picked up Candelario, that's great. But it was kind of hard seeing Kevin Made and DJ Hurst go. But, the way I kind of reconcile it is what's best for that player, that might be a quicker path to the big leagues for him. So, like, I'm going to see DJ pitch this afternoon for the Scottsdale Scorpions in the fall league. So, I'm hoping he shoves, and hopefully we get to see him in the big leagues in a year or two. As far as the outfielders, Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara, that's a really tough one. There's Kevin with his bat flip from last week, which was pretty cool. I think Kevin is better all around athletically, but man, Owen with that left-handed power. We just don't have that right now. And so I think, if I had to choose between the two, I'd want to keep Owen, I think, but I really want to keep them both.
Casey really jumped the rankings this year. Like, he wasn't even considered a top 100 guy coming into the year. Not only did he break into the top 100, but he's like in the middle of the pack of the top 100. I would agree in the fact that I think I would rather, if I had to choose, if you forced me to choose between the two, that Casey would be the one that I would want to stick with. Just tough to say because Alcantara has the vibes, and I'm a big vibes.
I was going to say, like, there's those moments when you're watching these guys, because I don't watch every minor league game and things like that, and even going back to the last core, but there would be those moments where guys, like, kind of catch the radar, and I think, like, that bat flip the other day from Alcantara, I know there was another minor league writer who was sharing, like, video of him stealing bases, and, the tweet was just like, Cubs fans are going to love this guy. And, like, you just watch a couple things, and it is very easy to sort of start to, like, fall in love with the guys, even though, you haven't seen a ton of what they've done. But, like, you watch the bat flip, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, all right, bring him up. You know what I mean? They're not trading him,
It's time. Yeah.
Rich,
he's got swag. He's definitely got a lot of swag.
Yeah.
There you go. In kind of all the same vein, obviously the few years that you've been, like, specifically doing this, but just following prospects. I mean, we look at the last, like, or the golden era of Cubs baseball, right? And the system, for various reasons, the system just was not healthy enough to supplement the major league roster throughout that time, and we saw what ended up happening in 21 and why they had to just hit the reset button. For you, especially over these last few years, whether it's some of the draft picks or the trades that they've made to bring in other prospects, how have you, or what are your thoughts on the development, the evolution, the kind of rise in the Cubs system with some of these top prospects, of just overall depth in the system?
Yeah. I think what kind of struck me in hindsight was, when you talk about that golden era, the Cubs really produced a lot, but it seemed like, and I know, and it gets tougher because as you get better, your draft picks get higher, so you don't have that shot as easily at the top talent. You're not picking in the top 10. But it kind of felt like the Cubs then learned how to build that championship, but they weren't sure yet how to sustain it. And I feel like that's maybe where hopefully we're seeing some differences now, because it feels like, in the last couple of years, we've added Cade Horton, and Jackson Ferris. We picked up Matt Shaw, Josh Rivera this last year. So hopefully we're kind of seeing that, not like, okay, our farm system's stocked, and okay, we're good now. We don't need to keep keep building it up. But it's like, no, as you know, as a Luke Little moves up to the bullpen, okay, who's the next guy up in Double A and Triple A who can take that spot and be, pushing for that? I'm real anxious to see a guy who's probably not on a lot of people's radar, but Adam Lasky, who's another lefty. Cubs haven't had a lot of lefties in the last couple of years, and like with Brandon Hughes getting hurt this year. But Adam, Bailey Horn, who pitched in the Fall League last year, Bailey didn't have the greatest year this year. He had some really good moments, and he had some where he struggled. But as you kind of start seeing more guys push one another, I think that's when you really see the good things. Because the knock, I think, preseason this year was, well, the Cubs have a good system, but they don't have a great system because they didn't have the top 50 or the top 100 guys. Now you're starting to see that, with Pete Crow Armstrong, with Cade Horton, Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, depending what you look at, James Triantos. Those guys are pushing their way up, and you're starting to see it more.
I asked Max this yesterday as well, in some aspect. He said minor leaguers that we've never, honestly, I had never heard of them. Guys who could emerge as like guys that we start to talk about for next year. So I guess for you, my question is like, this year, everyone was talking about PCA. The moment the season started, everyone's like, when's PCA coming? Call PCA up, blah, 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 scream, scream, scream. Yeah, I'm talking about you guys in the chat. So next year, who do you think for the Cubs in the minors could be the next guy that our YouTube chat is screaming, call this guy up now?
Great question. I'm gonna go maybe Moises Ballesteros.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Moises, he got called up to Double A for the playoffs. I mean, he played, started out at Myrtle Beach, did really well. Played at South Bend, did well. I think if I remember right, Moises is only like 19, I think. And even talking to like Max and Brendan, the broadcasters for South Bend, both those guys were super high on him. Just they said, for his age, you don't see a swing like that. So I think, to me, the big question with Moises is Moises was drafted as a catcher. He's kind of got that stocky build. So it's, I think the main question with Moises is, can he stick at catcher? Hopefully, I think a lot could be determined this offseason is what kind of work he puts in there. He played some first base. He played some DH for South Bend as well. But, he'd probably be my guess right now.
I think it's also partly because – like the Cubs don't have at least right now, right, going into the offseason, don't have the greatest catching depth or the deepest, catcher set of catchers in their minor leagues. And like we saw with the Cubs this past season, Yan Gomes gets hurt. Your only like major league catcher at that point is Tucker Barnhart, and you have guys in the minor leagues you're not sure of, so they bring up Miguel Amaya, who barely played in the last few seasons. And fortunately, he was able to kind of stick there and play well for at least the beginning part of his season. And, I know he had inconsistent playing time later on. But I think that kind of shows, like, when we talk about you can never have enough pitching depth, you also can't really ever have enough catching depth. So I think Moises Ballesteros, if he can continue to take steps forward as he did this past season, like, I don't know that he's going to officially put himself on the major league radar next year. Yeah. But you never know with injuries and stuff what might happen and what needs might arise throughout the season.
Yeah, and I guess regarding the catching, I think their catching is underrated. Personally, I think if you're looking for the Wilson Contreras type bat, you're probably not going to find that. But they've got some really strong defensive catchers. And I think that seems to be more of what the organization has moved towards. It's like almost like any offense we get out of the catching position we'll take as a bonus. But a guy who's not on a lot of people's radar, but could probably, be that third string type catcher, Bryce Windham, who played at Iowa this year. Bryce is one of my favorite guys, just, personality-wise, just this awesome human being. But the guy is an incredible freak athlete, had offers, could have played Division I basketball, went to ODU, Old Dominion, as an infielder, converted to catcher, and I think he hit over 300 this year at Iowa. And just, he's been on SportsCenter top 10 with some defensive plays he's made as well. So he's kind of another one of those guys, kind of like in the PJ Higgins mold, where I could see him getting called up as that third string catcher, but could also play some infield and stuff like that.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. You can't measure like all the defensive stuff the catcher can do, but I think we saw a really big jump in how it can affect pitchers this past year and in the second half of 2022. So, I'm kind of, I dig it.
Rich, you're out at the Arizona Fall League. Obviously, it started right at the end of the season. What are we seeing? I saw like James Triantos has had a good start to his Arizona Fall League. Like, what should Cubs fans be looking out for from anyone that's kind of paying attention to that? What should Cubs fans be looking out for from those guys?
Yeah, I think James's defense sometimes gets questioned. And definitely there's some work there to be done yet, but that's part of being a minor leaguer. He was playing third base the other night, and it was like a 1-0 or 2-0 score, and it was interesting because they had pulled the defense in. Somebody hits a shot to him. He knocks it down. Ball gets away from him a little bit, but has the presence of mind. Looks the runner back to third, makes a great throw to first, gets the guy. And, to me, I think those are some of those things that there is the progress because the bat will play. In my mind, there's no doubt that kid is going to be a major league hitter. I think the question is, can he play second? Can he play third? Or even, the outfield? But, definitely hitting wise, he's special. He is a special type of hitter. We already talked a little bit about Kevin, Alcantara. Kevin's just a must-watch at bat, just because you never know what's going to happen, and just the energy he brings both in the dugout. I posted a couple pictures of him on Twitter the other night, just interacting in the dugout and with fans and stuff like that. I think the pitchers, a lot of those guys are probably a little bit lower in the minor leagues, but Jose Romero is a guy to keep an eye on too. He pitched at Myrtle Beach this year, but he had some real good numbers there. He had a good outing on, I think it was Monday night when I watched him pitch. I mentioned Adam Lasky. Nick Hull started the other week. He's starting again today. It'll be interesting to see how he does because he pitched well for about 3 innings and got hit kind of hard in the 4th inning. So, we'll see if he can kind of bounce back a little, have a little bit stronger outing today. So those are some of the Cubs guys to see that I'm watching this fall.
Awesome, man. Corey, anything?
That's it for me.
Okay. Well, Rich, hey, man, it was awesome having you on. First time. Won't be the last time, I'm sure. Awesome. If you're ever in Chicago, because it is home for you in some aspects still.
It is, yep.
If you're ever back here, hit us up. You're more than welcome. Come join us in studio.
Or spring training. We'll see what that looks like for us, but we'd love to.
And Rich, if you need me to tell Brendan to leave you alone when he's out there, just shoot me a message, all right?
Brendan's a good friend, so it's fun interacting with all you guys. So really appreciate you guys having me on today.
For sure.
Totally, man. Appreciate your work out there, keeping us updated with prospects and stuff like that, and appreciate you hopping on.
And stay strong with all those Diamondbacks fans out there that are probably giving you a lot of crap right now, man. It's tough times, but hey, there's the future's bright.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, thanks, guys.
BIEST22 on Twitter if you don't already follow Rich.
Yeah.
Follow him now.
Great Cubs Twitter follow. He's on Instagram too, I believe, around the same handle.
Yeah, and I believe he contributes to some of our friends, some of the prospect sites.
Northside
Bound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So his work's out there. Great photographer, great stuff from him. So
the only thing
follow him on Twitter for sure.
The only thing I regret not asking him is if he was in the market for a new vehicle. I can't believe I didn't ask him. I forgot to ask Max yesterday.
That was Stucky-esque. I'm not going to lie.
You got to tell Luke that next time you see him. All right. But if he is in the market for a new vehicle, then we have great news for you. Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram in Fox Lake just joined the CHGO team. At Ray CDJR, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest inventories and find unforgettable savings. And right now during Ram Power Days at Ray CDJR. Only in Fox Lake, you'll be able to secure 0% financing or 17% off new Ram models. But that's not all. Now through October 31st, explore their newly renovated showroom and take advantage of limited time 7-year anniversary savings. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they are the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com today, serving the community since 1963.
Do you guys know what is like the best pairing with a new car?
Bacon.
Absolutely. Bacon, right on the money. Charlie the Bacon Guy is based out of Woodridge, Illinois, and he makes craft bacon and bacon jams in over 30 different flavors. This product is always all natural, no fancy preservatives product. Order lots of bacon. It's vacuum sealed and freezes great. The bacon lasts in the package up to 45 days in the fridge and 6 months in the freezer. The bacon jam lasts about 60 days in the fridge, usually about 20 seconds in my house, and up to 6 months in the freezer. Some of our favorites include the maple pepper, French toast, chorizo, jardiniere. The bacon jam goes perfectly on anything in scrambled eggs, toast, crackers, burgers, grilled cheese, or Charlie's favorite, the spoon. He will deliver to you, meet you halfway, or even ship it. He will get you the bacon on time. If you want to contact Charlie the Bacon Guy, go on Instagram at Charlie the Bacon Guy, Twitter at CZ the Bacon Guy, or email charliethebaconguy@gmail.com. Website coming soon. We love it. He's been in the office before. He's given us some great stuff.
Been in the chat before.
He's been in the chat before.
He loves the Cubs.
Our guy Charlie.
Yeah.
So make sure you're checking out Charlie the Bacon Guy and get some of that bacon or the bacon jam. Bacon jam's great.
Put the bacon jam on on pizza,
Yeah.
Okay.
and you'll thank me later. Yeah, maybe a little hot honey if you have it.
I'm willing to
Trust
try
me.
new things.
Come back and give Corey your review, or just add him on Twitter and give him your review of that.
Maybe if we give Tom Ricketts some of this bacon jam, he'll do whatever it takes to make this team better.
You want to rile up the people a little bit?
Oh, God.
Well, that
do
was
that.
my
There we go.
transition to the,
Yeah.
oh, did you get the letter from
Yeah.
Tom Ricketts today, guys?
I did.
Well, Corey did.
I, for some reason, did not, but maybe that's because I maybe
think-
Is it a season
unsubscribed
ticket holder
to
thing?
the
Well, no, they
emails.
send it to season ticket holders, but I think it's the same email as the one that goes to if you're just like subscribed on Cubs.com or whatever.
And I think I unsubscribed because I was tired
so
of
angry.
getting all of their damn emails. Because if I want to get Cubs tickets through them, I will. But I use Game Time more often than not.
That's true.
So, that's what it's basically a waste of time getting them for me at least. So that's why I didn't get it. But do we have thoughts? I know Colada, I see you in the chat. You haven't been here for the last couple days.
Godfather.
We've moved on from the minor leagues. We're going to talk about the major league team now, man. I've been reading your comments. You're cracking me up. I don't know how to fix your plantar fasciitis, but at least we can talk about how we can fix the Chicago Cubs in 2024.
Barb and Becky had some good suggestions for him. So
Yeah.
it was
The
a
chat's
productive,
cracking me up, honestly.
Productive
yeah,
day.
like a little WebMD situation going on.
I guess we should talk about this letter.
I would say first, right? I don't remember. Now we're in, and it's not that long ago. We're in the age where they only do it via email, but he used to send a letter to the season ticket holders, like a letter. It would come
mail.
either in the season ticket box or at the end of the year. And my thing with this is it's always the same thing as when you listen to Jed's press conference, David Ross at the end of the year. Take everything they're saying with a grain of salt, right? These guys are public-facing figures that are at the top of an organization. They're going to say what they need to say, right? None of it is legally binding, right? If he says we're going to spend money to make the team better, he doesn't have to do that, right? It's a nice thing to say and to get people to continue buying tickets. Take it however you want. But the only thing that I appreciate really from the letter, outside of, it's general platitudes. We need to be better. Our goal is to win championship, blah, blah, blah. It all sounds nice. He and Jed have both made a point to really hammer home, we are not going to call this season successful because we did not make the playoffs. And I do appreciate that, right?
Same.
Because I think they could spin that if they wanted to, right? If you read Tom's letter last offseason, there's a lot of like shining up of a turd, right? And trying to make things sound good, even if they didn't say it was successful. But this would have been an easy season for them to be like, we were in it till the last week, and that's part of the letter. But I appreciated that at least they're saying, look, this is not the standard we want. Whether they deliver a team that gets us to that standard is completely up to them. But I would rather read that than them trying to spin zone it completely for us.
Right.
So I at least appreciated that.
My thinking of it is, well, they could act like the Chicago Bears because, like, I feel like the way that Corey is explaining it, the reverse way is something like the Chicago Bears would do, or just like Matt Eberflus in their press conferences every week, doing the best they can to shine a turd, right? So, yeah, I agree in the fact that at least they're but saying, this isn't the goal. Like, we want to make the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. So, Collada, he says in the chat, Ricketts sent me a letter. All I said was shut up. And, listen, like, to me, it's like actions speak louder than words, right? I've been saying that for a year and a half. And, like, I have defended Tom in the fact of, like, people who say he doesn't spend any money at all. That's not true. I don't like the way that they manage things from the end of 2018 all the way through 2020. And I think a lot of that is on him. But since they traded the core at the deadline in 2021, the organization has built its way, or it seemingly looks like it's built its way back up a little bit. You have a lot more depth on the farm. We just talked about the minor league system with Rich. We talked to Max Bain yesterday about what, like, just for him and also what he's seen on the farm from his own perspective in locker rooms and stuff. Like, there's a lot to like what's going on down there. But so you feel like the organization's a lot healthier. Now it's like, okay, well, are we going to pony up the money for Cody Bellinger? And if not, what are you going to do to replace him? And is this team going to be a real contender next year? Because this year, coming in this year, it was all about, well, if this happens and this happens, if Cody Bellinger turns back into MVP form or anything close to that, and if Justin Steele takes this huge step and Nico and Dansby turn into the best middle infield in baseball defensively, and like if all these things happen,
they did,
and they did. Like a lot of those things did happen. But going into the year, I don't think a lot of people had a lot of faith in all those things happening. At least, right? Of those things that I mentioned, I think Dansby and Nico being the best defensive middle infield in baseball is probably the one that I think we all could have banked on the most, just based off what we had seen from Dansby most of his career and Nico last year. But
I predicted them both to win Gold Gloves.
Right, like they both deserve to win. They both deserve to win Gold Gloves. Yeah, big of you. So again, to bring it around, now it's like, okay, you have something brewing here. What are you going to do to take that next step to make this team a real contender? And that's why for the last week and a half I've been like, NL Central or bust, and more than just playoffs. Like, make this a real contender. They're right there. They are on the cusp. They are 2, 3, 4 players away, in my opinion, to be considered a real contender in the National League.
Yeah, and so just to read, Tom's actual words again, because I just don't trust when I talk about Tom. They always need to spend at the top of the league, right? And any year they're not, I don't think it's good enough. And I say this as someone that gives them a lot of my money, right? I put my money where my mouth is on that.
Big of you.
And in this letter, the part I'm going to read sounds nice, but even before I read it, I'm going to say the point of this is go and do it, right? Putting it in an email in October while the playoffs are going on and your team isn't in it is really easy, right? They're going to do single game tickets in the next few months. They're going to do new season ticket renewals in the next few months. So it's easy to say these nice things to try and convince people, but we are at the point, as you just said, it's put up or shut up time. No, like maybe this team will be good. Put a legitimate contender on the field. And in the letter, Tom says, again, take it with a grain of salt, Quote, while we are encouraged by many of the individual performances this year, almost making the playoffs is not success. As an organization, we need to build on our progress and become a team that can finish the race. To do that, we will continue to be active this offseason to supplement our roster and look for contributions from our pipeline of elite homegrown talent. There you go. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it.
You know what I mean? It sounds nice, but go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like reading the letter. I mean, he said it himself when we talked to him in Milwaukee. Jed said it. Like everyone said that the season's not a success, right? But like for Tom specifically, I think back to like when some of us talked to him last September 2022, when Pat Hughes got inducted to the Cubs Hall of Fame. Not the actual Hall of Fame that came later. The Cubs Hall of Fame, right? The more prestigious one.
People are saying.
Yeah, and we had talked to Tom then. And he used the word success to describe the season. There were still a few weeks left, but he had used it, and for him to say it wasn't a success this year with a better team goes to show you the internal expectations for both teams, right? Like last year, if he's calling last year a success when they finished 14 games under 500, or whatever it was, like that's very obvious what they wanted to get out of that season with some development, seeing guys take steps forward, seeing what they have in some of the internal guys to know what they need to get for future years. If you want to call it that a success in 2022, go ahead. That's what Tom kind of did. So whatever. This year, to say it wasn't a success shows you that the expectations were much higher considering some of the guys they brought in, some of the development they saw in guys in 2022, the internal options, whatever, the prospects that were going to be coming up. They had much higher expectations for this team than last year, and that's why they are all of them are saying like the season was not a success. They didn't make the playoffs. They didn't meet their goals that they set out on opening day to achieve. To not do that, you cannot call the season a success. So to see them being, obviously very honest about that, in a way is refreshing. And yeah, sometimes you just take it with a grain of salt on some of the things he says. But at least he's not spin zoning it, right? As you said, like at least they are straight up saying we didn't meet our goals. It's not a success. But as you guys have both said too, like where are your goals next year? Your goals have to be higher next year. Like it can't just be making the playoffs next year because you were this close. It got to be higher. How are you going to achieve those goals? You couldn't achieve your goal this year. How are you going to improve this team to achieve what should be higher goals next season? I think that's obviously going into this offseason, the number one question that needs to be answered is how do you make this team better equipped to achieve your goals for next season, which should be higher? That, to me, that's the number one question. That's the number one priority, regardless of how they do it, whether it's re-signing Cody Bellinger or trading for a guy like Juan Soto or Pete Alonso, doing a mix of things. However that has to get done, you have to answer the question, how can this team in 2024, how can you set that team up for more success than they were able to achieve in 2023, considering the expectations will and should be higher?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All
well,
right.
and just to finish on that, I did, and it, I don't know if we can show the quick Instagram post too, or do you want to do that in the next segment?
No, we can.
Well, because I was
talk
just going to
about
say it was interesting in Tom's letter that he says, quote, what also happened for the team this year was the emergence of a new core and a new identity. And he mentions several players by name: Justin Steele, Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson, and Nico Horner. The last player that he mentions in that paragraph, one Cody Bellinger, who is not technically a part of their new core or identity unless he gets money from the person writing this letter, or who had this letter ghost written for him, as our chat is speculating. So just interesting. And earlier today we did get, kind of the requisite, very quick, carousel of photos on Instagram from Cody Bellinger, a quick thank you to Cub fans. It was nothing crazy. It was one or two sentences, just thanks for a great season, great for my family, great for the fans. Yeah, one sentence. Yeah. We tweeted that on the CHGO Cubs Twitter account, and naturally it was taken very well by, our loyal readers. No, it was taken very poorly. Listen, that's a standard thing everybody does, right? You don't have to wait until you sign with a new team. And if he re-signs with the Cubs, it doesn't make saying, hey, thanks for a fun season any less true, or irrelevant. He's just sitting around with nothing to do.
Yeah.
He's got a big off season coming, him and his agent. I wouldn't read. Too many people are taking that as like, oh, he knows he's gone. Like, no, he doesn't.
Well,
Like, they haven't even started that conversation. Relax.
You look at what happened in Milwaukee, right? The day they got eliminated, or it might have been the day after, when he was basically asked, like, without knowing your future, like, how do you, blah, 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 about the season, whatever. And he's like, yeah, no, I just, you can't predict the future. Like, I really wanted to, like, be really all in on these last 3 weeks, just not knowing what the future holds kind of thing. And everyone's like, oh, he's gone. Yeah. He's on. Reading it, he used the word was. He's gone. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like that. Like, listen, it's gonna come down to money. It's going to come down to money. Who's willing to offer Cody Bellinger a big contract or the contract he's looking for? And the Cubs should realistically be in that, but they also have like a leg up on some of these teams because they don't really have to sell themselves so much on Bellinger. Maybe they have to sell, like, here's what else we're planning to do this offseason, or we have already done, and here's how we see it fitting in this year and beyond while you're here. Maybe they have to sell that a little bit more, but they don't have to sell him on the organization or the coaching staff or the players that are already on the roster. Like, he's got a whole year to be in that system, be in the organization, and learn the ins and outs and what it's all about. Yeah. Cubs don't have to do that with Cody Bellinger like they would with other free agents. So in a way, that's, maybe that's a little bit of an advantage. Again, it's going to come down to, it probably will come down to who's going to give him the most money, who's going to give him the best contract that he's looking for. But if the Cubs are willing to do that, then they also have an advantage a little bit but you also know what we're about. We've helped you get back to a better you after a couple of years of being injured. We're a team on the come up kind of thing, right? Like, he knows what they're about. They don't have to sell that to him anymore. And so I think that as long as the Cubs are willing to give him the kind of contract he wants, that gives him a little bit of a leg up or just a head start on, convincing Bellinger to return to Chicago.
And we don't know all for what it's worth, right? Because they know players on different teams, stuff like that. But from everything we've read, Dansby Swanson might threaten Cody Bellinger's life if he is entertaining other offers. We hear that he's in Jed's ear all the time. So I'm assuming he's talking to these guys, trying to build something himself right in that clubhouse. So how much that counts, I don't know. But
back on the cryptic like caption or whatever, let's just remember Wilson Contreras wrote a Players Tribune article and said how much Yadier Molina was his idol before he said anything about Cubs fans and put anything on Instagram. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
As in, it means absolutely nothing what these Instagram posts mean, all right?
I mean, if I were a player, it just doesn't seem that weird when you, I think, like, reverse the perspective. People are looking to read through the tea leaves and stuff like that, and, like, if I were Cody Bellinger, you're like sitting around, you're maybe watching the playoffs, you're watching your old team, the Dodgers, in the playoffs, whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna say, hey, thanks Cubs fans, because I haven't I just don't think it's not a big deal.
It's also like people would make it a big deal if he didn't post anything about hating the Cubs
right.
fans.
Did he hate it here? Why didn't he say thank you?
He never thanked anyone. He hates the Cubs. He's never coming back.
But this is the thing about the offseason, right? Is like, that's all we got. Mm-hmm. We have a letter from the owner that's a bunch of like nice businessy platitudes to parse through, and the sort of key free agent. Oh my God, he posted something on Instagram. You know what I mean? So like, it's what we got. But it's a whole lot of nothing, basically.
Right, basically.
So. Or maybe it's everything.
Maybe
you should read into everything.
Never.
I don't know.
You can never let the facts get in the way of a good story, as we've said on this show thousands of times at this point. So, what goes well with all these tea leaves and dreaming is Sunnyside, Corey.
Well, that wasn't. Your first one was more Stuckey-esque.
I know.
The chat
I'm trying.
The chat and Twitter would have wanted you to say that we're talking about Cody Bellinger, and the perfect.
Oh, it was right there.
The perfect thing to keep Cody Bellinger in Chicago, if you know, is Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensaries. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. And Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your football season. As I always say, whether you are an experienced user or new to your cannabis journey, the knowledgeable and loyal and friendly staff at all Sunnyside locations can answer any questions you have, direct you to any products you want to try or learn about. They are very easy to talk to and can get you going on your cannabis journey. Easy online ordering and in-store pickup. You can order online. It is ready in seconds for you to pick up. And it is Illinois' favorite dispensary, of course, my favorite location on Clark Street in Wrigleyville, just steps from beautiful, historic Wrigley Field. The Cubs aren't playing, so when I go to the Sunnyside in Wrigleyville, it's, the vibes aren't quite as immaculate, but still, there's something about, you pick up your order and you get to walk by beautiful, historic Wrigley Field, and, it makes me miss going to the games and being excited for the season. The vibes are still there, is what I'm saying, because it's about 200 steps from Wrigley Field. So
absolutely.
You can shop Sunnyside's house of brands like Good News, gummies, rechargeable vape pens, and carts, perfect for great moments with the crew. Cresco, reliably excellent cannabis, consistent quality, experience, and availability of flower, vapes, concentrate, and pre-rolls. All their great brands. And through October 15th, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. One use per customer, not stackable with other promotions. That's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. Pick up everything you need to elevate your football season. Again, that code CHGO25. Must be 21 or older or an Illinois Med card holder.
Yeah, well, my transition wasn't that good, but I can say that Sunnyside, after your trip to Sunnyside, coming home, open up your laptop, or maybe if you have a smart TV and turn on, going straight to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel, pairs well together, all right? That's kind of what we do here, right? And if you become a diehard, you get even more. All right, so we got podcast live shows every day with every team in the city. I'm sure the Blackhawks show was popping last night after the win, the come-from-behind win. Again, Blackhawks are 1-0 since I became a fan. Post-game shows, premium written content for members at allchgo.com. Ryan Herrera, he's the one for Cubs. We got all kinds of other writers doing the premium written content.
Jared will help out as well.
Jared, yeah, I can't forget Jared, sorry.
He just ran a marathon. You forgot.
He did just run a marathon. He does have an elite beard too. So
that he does.
I'm sorry.
That he does.
20% off events and merch. We're all rocking the merch, and then of course the tailgate this weekend. You get 20% off if you're a diehard. And we've been talking about the tailgates all football season. I mean, they're fun. They're great times. They're fun. Or they're a vibe. So and then one of the cool things, if you do become a diehard, is get a free shirt when you become a diehard. So if you
want any of these shirts,
say Colada. I know you're a Hawks fan. I see you in the chat for their shows all the time. You want to get a Bedard shirt? Sign up, become a diehard, and get a Bedard shirt, and then you can get another Bedard shirt because I'm sure we're gonna have plenty of them as the years go on and on. So and you can get one of them for 20% off. So get one free. And then, obviously, the members-only Discord is the place to be when times are good and bad, because it becomes a venting sesh when things are bad, and it becomes we're never losing again in the Cubs Discord whenever the Cubs are playing well. So it's very high and it's very low at times. But at least you're screaming in happiness or sadness with other Cubs fans or other fans of other teams in Chicago that you like. So.
And if you missed the show yesterday, I have promised diehards a picture with my dad at a future CHGO event. I can't confirm or deny when that would be, but he'll be at a few of them in the future.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got 6 minutes left, so there's no better time than I guess talk about the playoffs, and we can talk about some cool moments from this day.
Well, this day in 2016 was pretty special, wasn't it?
Yeah, our best friend Ben Zobrist started the rally in Game 4 against the Giants. Javi Baez finished it. Yeah, I mean that. I know where I was when that game happened. I was at the time I lived in Peoria, East Peoria technically, and my buddy who I lived with, two guys. One was a Cardinals fan, the other one was a Cubs fan. The Cubs fan, he had already packed it in. He's like, we're playing a game 5. He went to bed, and my other buddy, again Cardinals fan, he had went to bed. So I'm on the couch by myself watching this game, and I woke up the entire building when the comeback happened. So that's what I remember most. My Cardinals fan roommate at the time, he texted me. He's like, "Will you please shut up?"
I mean,
that was pretty awesome. Honestly.
Yeah, I remember like thinking back on it, and it's still like the Cubs were a better team than the Giants, obviously that year. But like, you go to a game 5, anything can happen. It's baseball. We see it in the postseason right now. Like, one game can really swing things in anyone's favor. So like, not saying the Cubs for sure lose a game 5, but you don't really want to leave it up to that. So having that huge comeback and getting that win and finishing off the series before it gets to game 5 was just so huge for like momentum, but just
and
not
rest too.
Yeah, just not letting rest, but just not letting the randomness of baseball come into play, especially in a game 5. Like just getting it out of the way, getting it done was like just so huge for that team and getting to the next series, obviously against the Dodgers, who were a better team than the Giants that year. But just making sure you didn't have to expend any more energy than you needed to get through that division series. I mean, that was a huge game for him. And I mean, that's not like a hot take. That was very obvious.
Think, I always, that series is always an example to me of, the randomness of the playoffs and just how competitive the playoffs are. Like you said, Ryan, the Cubs were way better than the Giants that year. But had they not had that 9th inning comeback, it would have been a repeat of game 1, which was Lester and Cueto. It was a 1-0 game, right? Like, so
a home run that barely got out.
Yeah, that Cueto was going to bring it. Obviously, John Lester is one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. He was going to bring it, but not a scenario you wanted to repeat, right? You barely got out of game 1 with the W, thanks to Javi Baez and, as I've tweeted, also Pedro Strop for basically demanding that Javi go and hit that home run in the dugout. But that's a good way to look at it, right? Like, we knew that Cubs team was loaded, they were ready to go, and very easily that series goes a different way. Yeah.
And also, like, the Giants had, like, we kind of hinted on this, or not hinted, but like rehashed it yesterday. Like, the Giants had this even year magic or whatever. Like, every even year they had won the World Series, and like they're coming in with house money in this series, and Madison Bumgarner being one of the greatest postseason pitchers ever, and like all this like annoying bad juju. Like, I remember that going into the 9th inning, I was like, I'm really gonna have to watch this go to a game 5. And I'm telling you,
I don't think people understand. I don't think they remember how scary it was. And what people, I think, forget is also, like, Matt Moore was shoving it down the Cubs' throat that night for 8 innings. They couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
And they pulled him in the 9th inning. And I think it was, Sergio Romo who they start? No.
It was one of those games where Joe Madden, like, moving chess.
Yeah, remember
around.
they put in I remember they showed Coughlin or whatever as the pinch hitter, and then they pulled him out. They got them to put in their lefty or whatever, and they pulled him out. They went with Contreras instead. He ended up, like, it was chess moves. But that was, like, the Matt Moore thing, they really opened up the door. The Cubs had no life at that point.
Yeah.
And I think, like, what Cody's saying is true. Like, could have gone a different way. That game could be talked about in a totally different fashion. And instead is, like, something that's just totally...
It's one of the best postseason games, or I guess best endings of the 2016 postseason run.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine if they had lost that game and then had to go back to beautiful historic Wrigley Field for a game 5 with all the anxiety and the 108-year curse.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and
the energy would have been weird.
And I'm only
It would have
emphasizing
been a lot of people on edge in that stadium.
I'm emphasizing it even more because this postseason has been the year of the underdog, it feels like. Like, the Diamondbacks are on the verge of sweeping the Dodgers tonight. The Orioles got swept by the Rangers. We're talking about teams that were the best. The Braves are literally one Austin Riley home run away from being down 0-2 to the Phillies right now. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, I can't emphasize enough just how special the 2016 postseason run was. As much as I want to see more, and I have high expectations for more down the road, when we really say at least we'll always have 2016, it's not a bit or a joke. It's like legitimately, like it's so hard to win.
Hard to get.
It's
one.
so hard
It's
to
very
win
hard
in
to
the
get
postseason,
one.
man.
Yeah.
Because again, like Corey said, it's such a crapshoot. It's the randomness.
Well,
Anything can
everything
happen.
just condenses down, right? And you're seeing that, I think, in some of these other series. Like, there was so much chatter about the playoff format and whatever, and we're at the end of our episode, so we're not going to get into that, and I know you guys talked about it a little bit. But the real takeaway, honestly, like, these other teams are just good.
Yeah.
Like, the Texas Rangers are good. It's a bummer for the Orioles that they ran into a team like that, but the Rangers are real good. And
I agree.
You look at, like, you know, Arizona. Arizona knows the Dodgers well. The Dodgers are running on fumes. They've lost, you know, basically the entirety of the rotation throughout the year and things like that. But, like, 5-game series, you only have to win 3 games. Like, you got to beat Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. It's not easy. It doesn't matter if the Dodgers won, I don't know, 15 more games than them or something like that during the regular season. Like, these teams are good, and that's the thing. Like, the Cubs were way better than the Giants in 2016, but that's still a really good team.
Yeah.
You know, they get through that 9th inning because uncharacteristically, Brandon Crawford throws one of those balls away, right, on what would have been a double play ball. Like, and they barely get out of there and win. Like, these teams are good. That Dodgers team in 16 was good. There's a lot of good players on that
Indians
team.
That was the
Like,
fastest Hayward had gotten down the line all season.
Yeah.
On that bunt.
And that's the
that
one
they
that Crawford
threw,
throws away.
That was
Yeah.
the fastest. It was a horrible bunt.
So, like,
too.
that's-
he had one. It was a horrendous bunt.
Yeah, I always just like to look at some of that and say, we can debate the format, we can debate this, we can debate that. Ultimately, like, we know, because we watch it every day, like, anybody can beat anybody 3 out of 5 games, right? And when you condense everything down and the Diamondbacks are going to say to Zach Gallen, you are going to pitch like every 4th day. We're going to ride you like the Nationals did with Scherzer and Patrick Corbin and Steven Strasburg the year they won the World Series. You can make it work, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter what happened over the course of 162.
Yeah.
But as we head off here, before we head off, I do want to give a shout out to one of our great sponsors, and that is FOCO. FOCO has provided us with a lot of set decorations. They've donated some pieces, and I know we've seen that Hayden Wisniewski bobblehead, one of our favorites. And you can get fitted out. It's football season. It's hockey season. I was looking at FOCO's website. They've got everything you need. They got a Connor Bedard bobblehead getting ready to pre-order. Looking at some of the Cubs stuff, they have a couple of London Series bobbleheads, Dansby Swanson, Seiya Suzuki, that you can pre-order. They got some Chicago Cubs overalls, not, you know, for the Bears tailgate, but I think it's a vibe. I think maybe Stuckey and some Chicago Cubs, Chicago flag overalls sounds like a good thing to me, but you can get fitted out with the best sports gear around for any sport, any season. Ryan, of course, a big fan of the Aloha shirts.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
got straw hats, polos, bags, everything you need for a game, everything you need for a tailgate, whatever the occasion, FOCO has you covered. Check out their website. A lot of stuff on pre-order, a lot of great stuff, bobbleheads, clothes, gifts. You know, we're heading into the holiday season in a month or 2 here. Load up on your gifts at FOCO. They got you covered. And check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Again, that it is FOCO.com.
All right. Speaking of those overalls, again, I plan to wear them to the Cubs convention this year.
You fit
It's-
13 beers in them? Right?
13 beers on them, yeah.
There you go.
You know,
Absolutely must get.
Goose Island specifically.
It's a vibe. I mean, you're gonna catch some attention. Yeah.
Well, in that case, maybe. Okay. Well, whatever. I'll figure that out in January. Thanks for checking out today's show, guys. Hopefully Luke is back tomorrow. We thought he was going to be in today, but then first thing I did when I opened my phone today, it was not go to a sportsbook app. It was I looked at my text messages and saw that Luke was not feeling good, and I was sad. But yeah, so hopefully he's back tomorrow. But last guest of the week, my good friend Fred, aka Dom Frederick, will be on the show tomorrow remotely. So He will be hiding his face again.
Are we saying-
I still think we should like take his like morale logo and like make it a mask and then actually have him in here, but with it like over his face the entire time.
With
but,
like the thing that like switches up the voices and stuff, like makes it way deep.
Yeah.
Are we saying showtime, Cody?
3 p.m. tomorrow because he's not available before 3 p.m. So tomorrow's show is at 3 p.m.
All right, you hear that, Barb? We will be live
Barb?
at 3 p.m. tomorrow.
3 p.m. tomorrow, Barb. Live.
Thursday.
Right here, CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you're new here today. Did I miss anything else?
I think we're good.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Good job.
I would add Brendan and I are on Fridays now.
You are on Friday.
The YouTube episode will air at 1:20. It is not live.
It'll be pre-recorded, right?
It's not live.
Just with our work schedules, can't do it live, but we do read the chat, respond to YouTube comments, etc. But it will go up at 1:20 on Fridays.
Okay, so tomorrow's show, 3 p.m. Friday show is at 1:20, Barb.
There we go.
There you go.
Yes, Craig. Always Central Time.
Always
Central Time. CT.
Yes.
I think you're supposed to say fly the W or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, also, one more thing. Aramis Ramirez Grand Slam 2003.
Yes.
We're going to eventually have to talk about the ending of that series, but that was one of my favorite moments as a kid.
That was not 20 years ago today.
We can never
Ending.
talk about Aramis Ramirez enough.
You're right.
He was an unbelievable player for the Chicago Cubs. One of the best moves Jim Hendry ever made. And I've said this a lot. Like, I love the 2016 team. They're the team that did it. But as a kid, you know this, right? Growing up with those teams, there's just like part of your brain where it was always supposed to be like Sosa, Lee, Ramirez, Wood, Pryor, Zambrano, that eventually broke it, right? That did it first. And they didn't. And at this point, I'm not mad about it. But even when I watch those highlights, I'm like,
Yeah,
I know. Should have been you.
I just wanted to acknowledge it because Aramis Ramirez was one of my favorite players as a kid. And never forget, Luke Stuckmeyer on this show on YouTube, live on YouTube, compared him and Scott Rowland and said that, and we sat here and said that maybe Aramis Ramirez deserves to be in the Hall of Fame if they're going to put Scott Rowland in. So I just want to emphasize that again.
All right.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. Fly the W.